Whittlesea and Werribee are an hour away. You are, completely outside the electorate where this by-election is. Is it? I get the strategic reasons for that you've outlined, but is it appropriate for forget the mayor punch, just a sitting councillor, an elected representative, a couple months into that role to be going off and then just running in a by-election somewhere else where you've almost said yourself that you don't really intend on winning, it's just trying to get a bigger platform on it?
Look, whether I win or not, I can cross that bridge as it comes. But I think that's a good problem if that were the case. Look, in any normal situation, there would be eyebrows, and rightfully so, at that move. But let's have a look at Victoria. It's not in a normal situation. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I'm more than happy to put my hand up and begin that opposite reaction because Victoria needs a circuit breaker. And I implore councillors, mayors, anybody who wants to represent the community to step aside from their job, put their hand up and create a much broader forum for the issues that face Victoria. So the issues that face Whittlesea are just as common as the issues that face Werribee. And when you see the amount of potholes in Whittlesea, you're probably having a competition with the amount of potholes in Werribee, as with all 79 local government jurisdictions. So on a state level, not only can I help Whittlesea on a much, much broader issue, and I'll talk about those shortly, one of the key ones is that there's a proposed incinerator in Wallert, which is one of the fastest growing suburbs in Victoria, a growth corridor that has 88,000 homes earmarked for it over the next 16 years. Unprecedented growth. And then you've got an application that's been encouraged and supported by the Labor Party in our backyard that has 380,000 tonnes of heavy vehicle traffic on our already compromised local roads and nanoparticles from the incinerator that travel up to 25 kilometres, which is pretty much the half of Whittlesea. Yet because it hit me that, hang on, why are they doing this? And it's not just Whittlesea, they're building one in Laverton, and that impacts Werribee. So I'm thinking 4 incinerators in the outer Melbourne suburbs. They literally have used the Labor stronghold districts as their dumping grounds. And this is how complacent the Labor Party and how bold they have become now. In broad daylight, they're saying they're going to vote Labor anyway, so guess what? We're going to dump an incinerator. In Whittlesea's backyard, we're going to dump an incinerator in Werribee's backyard. So I think if you look at the correlations of the two cities, it's not a tale of two cities, it's a tale of two cities with very, very common themes. And as I said, yes, it's roads, rates and rubbish predominantly, but also it isn't, because we've become pseudo-government departments. The amount of cost shifting that has occurred from state government to local government is unprecedented. 4 years ago, we had 100 frontline services in local government. We now have 167. 67 extra services in a very short 4 years. It's not sustainable. And when I say services, a lot of these are politically motivated services that people from the political parties, predominantly the Labor Party, stack. So what you're doing now is you're seeing taxpayers' money being filtered into councils to have these pop-up organisations left, right and centre, save the spotted hen, and save the spotted hen with 1 foot, save the spotted hen with no feet. The most ridiculous things are popping up everywhere, and they've been infiltrated by the political parties. I would go so far as to say that the 79 councils have become pseudo-Labor Party branches. And the Labor Party in their constitution even says that they have to consult caucus. It's in their constitution. If you're an elected local representative, caucus will direct them as to how they should vote in the council chambers, which undermines the roles and responsibilities for a local elected representative to represent their community without fear or favour. So it's heavily compromised. And if you look at anything, if the foundations of a pyramid are shaky, then it only gets worse as you go higher. And that's what's happening. They have been heavily compromised. The foundations absolutely are shaking in local government. And because I've experienced being a councillor in a local government in Queensland, they are like chalk and cheese. So I'm in a very fortunate situation where I can compare the two. Had I not had that experience previously, I would have just thought this is how government is run. But this is how government is run, but it shouldn't be that way. So for me, the issues in Werribee, the issues in Whittlesea, they're run parallel, and the cause and concerns of the people, they're the same. People are hurting. Cost of living is hurting. The health system's blocked. They've had road works been going on for how many years now, and the lane's still unopened. At some point, people say, you know what? We're actually getting walked over here. We're getting played fools. So, the only prerequisite to run in a state district in Victoria is that you are registered on the Victorian roll. The reason for that is because your decisions in Spring Street affect the whole of Victoria, and therefore you get paid for your decisions, not to cut ribbons and cuddle babies. That's a little bonus that you can do to connect to the community. That's fine. But now we have a parliament full of glorified socialites, and heavily run but dictated to by bureaucracy and big business. And that's what's happened. And that's why, unfortunately, Liberal and Labor are like Coke and Pepsi, and people are screaming out for orange juice. And unfortunately, there's very, very limited amounts of orange juice in Spring Street, which is where I come into play. And that's why I've put my hand up for Werribee.
I'm curious because you've criticised the Liberal Party just then. You've criticised them many times before. Why is it that only recently you were trying to join them? You were actually trying to join up. And I'll note also, of course, for those who aren't familiar with the history, you were elected back in Queensland as an LNP MP. I believe you're also a member of the State Liberal Party before the merger when it happened. But yeah, you're very critical of them. Why do you want to? Well, why have you wanted to join up so recently?
I'll tell you why. And it's a good question. As you see, the left forces and minor parties dragging the Labor Party, and they have 5 factions. Centre right, Unity, Socialist left, and then the far right. And what happens is when you get a political party like the Liberal Party, which is supposed to be the broad church that John Howard espoused, what you've seen is, I look at it since I joined the Liberal Party in 1996. Has it got better? No, it's got worse. And the more I look at it, they're two heads of the same creature. Now, the reason why 9 months ago I put my application forward for their consideration was because 4 years prior to that, I addressed State Assembly, told them what I had to offer, and I lost by about 7 votes out of 210. So it was very, very close. And you need, the problem is now you need 66% of the State Assembly's support to get back into the party. I actually withdrew my application, so I didn't actually proceed with it. So when people say that, I submitted it, yeah, I submitted it, I didn't proceed with it. The reality is, if in political parties, and I have, started a couple of parties in Queensland and in Victoria now, it's enormously challenging to be able to get mainstream media and a broader demographic supporting what I think are very sound policies that aren't in the public arena today. But when you look at the Liberal Party, the big point of difference is you still get a conscience vote in the Liberal Party. You don't in the Labor. You cross the floor or you go against Labor, you get guillotined. It's all over. So to me, democracy is completely blindsided in the Labor Party. You become a puppet. You are another number, and if you mess up, you will be replaced by another number. Liberal Party, fortunately, they haven't gone that far. What they say on their website is fantastic. Do they live it? Heck no. Their actions and their words are two different things. I don't even know if some of them have read their words, to be honest. Some of them are definitely the wrong party. But we're also entering a very weird time in politics. Like Malcolm Turnbull could have easily have been a Labor Party Prime Minister, and Kevin Rudd could have been a Conservative Prime Minister. So it doesn't really matter anymore. They're vehicles. And as we've even seen with the recent Trump election, who's talking about the Republican Party over the last 3 months? Nobody. You may as well call it the Trump Party. So they're vehicles, and I was hoping that if I were able to get into that vehicle, yes, it's got flat tyres, it's faded, and its brakes are a bit loose, but it's easier to do that than build it from scratch. However, I'm looking at it now, and the weeds in the grass are growing so far up it now that even if you pump the tyres up, it's still not going to move. So at some point, you've got to say, you know what? This is history repeating itself. This is Menzies 2.0 that is needed, and equally, the Labor Party, they're also imploding. If you look at the DLP, the Democratic Labor Party split 1955, it's because the very problems that were happening there are happening again. So the Labor and Liberal parties are in crisis mode. Once again, holding up a brave face. We've got a Prime Minister with 31% primary vote. So we now have a country where 70% of Australians can not support that party, but they can still be the Prime Minister from that party. How does that work? And that is faced with both Liberal and Labor. To me, they've become two heads of the same creature. They're a Dumb and Dumber. They're a Coke and Pepsi, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is, the existing system is dysfunctional. It does not work anymore. And big business and the bureaucrats are running amok, and they're using our politicians that are driven largely by self-interest and egos to stand in front of the cameras and sort of, be the PR machine for something that they probably don't even agree with. But they don't care as long as they get their 30 pieces of silver. It's got something sort of changed. We need a circuit breaker in Victoria and Australia.
Yeah, I'll note for those who, because we get comments about that often, obviously as we both know, you don't become prime minister off a national popular vote anyway. But look, we obviously, as we both know, Labor's national primary vote is not good at the moment. That's a separate conversation. I am interested. You alluded to it there, and it is something that we've brought up before, that we've literally discussed before, but it is relevant because, again, you have been, for one man, in a lot of parties. You've been a member of the Queensland Liberals, Queensland Nationals, LNP, Queensland Party, KAP, Family First, Federation. You started up with Morgan C. Jonas, the Freedom Party. I spoke to you about that in the 2022 Vic election. Do you have any plans for another one? Is it just going to kind of keep going, or are you just happy to, depending on the results of this by-election, just stick it out as an independent?
Look, I think the way I operate, and in my maiden speech in 2009, I'd be quite happy to photocopy it and say the same thing in the parliament should I be elected in Werribee. I don't change my principles. My objectives remain the same all the time. And in doing so, I know that I'm true to myself. Yes, I'm a politician in Australia that's been in the most amount of political parties. I wear that as 8 feathers in my cap, because I have not compromised anywhere at any point in time what it is I believe in and what I'm setting out to do. The Westminster system has been completely undermined because originally it was meant to be a bunch of collective of independents in the pursuit of best policy. Now we've got a situation where political parties, starting with the Labor Party, mind you, that hijacked that process and took the independents away from the representatives in their communities. Now what's happened is we've got senators that fly in to represent their state, that fly into Canberra and represent their party. So it completely flies against what our forefathers had intended when they wrote the Constitution. So, really, we say the law is an ass. Well, where does the law come from? It comes from our political system. So the political system's a bigger ass. And that's exactly where we're at the moment. So will I start another party? Look, I can't say no. I can't say yes, because, at the moment, my political career, ever since I started, actually, I should never use that word career. I hate that. It's a duty. I don't like it when people have political careers. That's the big problem with politics. They get into comfort zones and worry about their money. So with my political duties, since I was 15 years old, I've always struggled for the objective. Now, if the objective comes to the point where a vehicle needs to start, or an umbrella like Menzies did, then and I want to be a part of that, absolutely. I'm not going to rule that out. I think it needs to be done. And I think I'm probably going to be a very important piece in that jigsaw puzzle. So, look, for now, obviously my focus for the next 16 days is to get the highest primary vote I possibly can and get my 5-point wish list to the Premier and to the Leader of Opposition, which I've given to them. They are aware of, and they're both going to want my preferences in there. Now, if I poll somewhere between 4 and 6%, for example, that's kingmaker stuff. Like, someone's going to get those 1,500 votes, and it could come down to a couple hundred votes between the parties. It's going to be very, very close. So I intentionally came out of left field to put Whittlesea City front and centre on the state government agenda, but also to let the other 78 mayors and councillors know that how much you're going to put up with. You get your pay packets, that's fine, we all get that, and the poor councillors on 38 grand a year. Now, that's not a full-time job. That's only enough time to sit in front of the Tuesday night meeting and rubber stamp whatever the bureaucrats have put in front of them. We are living in a false democracy, and until someone calls it out for what it is, we're going to continue to get what we've always got, which is unacceptable.
I'm curious there. You just mentioned pain. You're right. I think people kind of overstate how much councillors in this state get paid. It really isn't enough. There's a reason a lot of them do other jobs and have other gigs. But if maybe if you're not elected, and you've just talked there, maybe you'll be the kingmaker. We'll have to wait and see. It's all unknowns at this point. Are you going to, for the residents who have elected you as their local member, and they've elected you overwhelmingly, as we've discussed in the October local elections, are you just going to be focused on that, or are you again just considering state? And I'll note, of course, between the local elections in 2028, there is a state election in 2026.
Sure. There's also a federal election around the corner. I haven't ruled anything out. My political discourse it's a choose your own adventure. And every single time, if I can increase the interest and capacity of my roles and responsibilities for the people I currently represent, then I will do that without fear or favour. I don't care if people knock me. I don't care if they love me or hate me, as long as they tune in. So the reality is, I'm doing Werribee to put Whittlesea front and centre. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still working as a councillor in my ward of Kirrip. I'm literally stepping aside from the title of mayor for 16 days, 16 short days, of which there is no full council. The next full sitting of council is on the 17th of February. Now, the by-election is on the 8th. So I've still got 9 days grace to, dust off, get back up again. And I'm very privy to everything that's going on. So for the sake of my $350 that I'm putting forward, that could be a windfall of $35 million to Whittlesea. Now, that's a pretty good return if you're a betting man. And why wouldn't you? I mean, are you going to worry about what people say about you? Because and then the city loses 30, 40, 50 mil, an incinerator that might get shut down, another, huge amount of funding from the federal government because of an election on the side. I will absolutely and strategically and fearlessly look at every single avenue possible to benefit the people I'm representing. And they will see that in the fullness of time. Many people know that already. And what we've seen in the public arena in the last 48 hours is the unleashing of a very, very angry and disparate Labor, may as well be Liberal, same thing, Labor Party. It's like poking a hornet's nest because they've never been poked before. They're just sitting there, what do they do? They're rolling in their own mud right to their outcome. The net gain in the disposable income is drastically reduced. People have access to collateral on their mortgages. It's very, very tight out there. And one of the things I've realised too is that you need two incomes and even two household incomes. One of the people is still earning another one at night shift. It's ridiculous. I mean, how long are we going to put up with this? And I remember a song by Rage Against the Machine, and one of my favourite lines in it was, "Hungry people don't stay hungry for long." And people are just they might be putting the baked beans and the oats on the table, but I tell you what, if you start taking that off, there's going to be a revolt, and rightfully so. Do I want to lead that? 100%. Do I want someone else to lead it? 100%. So my point is, if not me, who? And if not now, when? I'm not going to look and there's my little wage for mayor and I'm going to keep it. No, I'm not there for that. Is it good and it puts food on the table? Yes. And that's okay. It's compensated fairly for the work that I do. But I'm certainly not going to sit there and go, what will people think of me if I, go somewhere else to help the city? I'll help the city in a heartbeat. I don't care. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the political machinations and, the Labor Party, he's running away, he wants a higher wage. To me, it's white noise. I don't care. As long as my objectives and I'm true to myself, then I don't have to be true to anyone else. And that's where I think politicians have lost it. A lot of them leave their conscience at the door. They're driven by self-interest. And that's why what you're seeing now is political parties pack hunt, because individually they're very, very weak individuals, because if they're prepared to leave their conscience at the door and pack hunt, then one-on-one, you're talking to a shadow. And that's where we're at in Victorian politics. And until something drastic happens and a circuit breaker happens, then, Werribee tied to our kids are going to be paying more than $200 billion back. That they will literally become modern-day slaves. That's where it's heading, until people say, you know what, we're going to man up and take it on, because at the end of the day, they're elected to serve us, not to be served upon. And people understand that politics is a numbers game. All right, you've got 88, 89, MPs and 40. You've got about 128 MPs in the lower and upper house. You've got 6.5 million people. They have attacked and smashed the family unit. Their policies have been degrading. They have undermined our kindergartens, our primary schools. At every step of the way where we're trying to have a happy and healthy life and make a good income and have an annual family holiday, they are taking one thing away from us at a time while they're building their real estate portfolios. And I, for one, have had a gutful, and I'm going to go in there, I'm going to tell it as it is, and if the people want to join me, great, and if they don't want to join me, I've still done the right thing.
Well, we'll certainly keep following your political, I won't use that word career, as you said, with interest. But Aidan McLindon, I really, really appreciate your time. Best of luck. Thank you so much.
No worries, Leo. Good to chat.